What's up, everybody? What's going on? Just getting ready. I barely got on in time because I just posted a story, but we'll get going here in a minute. Yeah, and then we'll talk about all the news of the day and how wonderful the news of the day has been. The last news story shouldn't make me smile, but it does. So, yeah, we're about to get going, and then I'll have to turn off the music and. All right, let's get going. This is going to be so fun. So fun. It doesn't start off fun, though. The first story of the day, of course, was Huánuco and the Waiko in Huánuco, and the amount of devastation that's going on. And I hope people have had a chance at this point to give it a look themselves, see videos and images from Huánuco so they can see just exactly what it looks like. Because there's nothing like seeing a moto taxi thrown down the street by rushing water. It honestly, like, not quite as severe as what happened in Valencia, Spain, but like still it gives you that sort of feeling when you watch the videos. We're now up to 500 houses damaged as a result. I'm still going with the 30 collapsed, though. That I don't think has increased, but 500 houses damaged from the Waiko, which is a considerable amount for a city of that size. It's not big, right? So 500 houses is a lot of houses to be damaged. And the governor has declared a state of emergency. Some of you may have seen, I replied to a comment on the video about it this morning. And the commenter was saying that, Dina won't care because she's got APEC and all that stuff. And there's a legitimate concern there. There's a very legitimate concern that with Congress on vacation, or back to see their constituents wherever they've decided to go, they're not around. So Congress isn't around. And Dina is doing her thing with APEC. So where's the national level leadership to make sure that people are doing the right thing? So that was the first story of the morning. The second, we tried to go a little bit positive here, and that was the gondola project proposal for Huascarán National Park. It's a $100 million potential investment in Huascarán National Park. Now, I don't know if everybody knows where that is, and I know a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to go, but Huascarán is sort of close to Huaraz, So if you were looking to travel there, like usually everybody stays in Huaraz, and then they sort of travel out from Huaraz using private tour companies. A lot of the tour companies are sort of situated around the Plaza de Armas in Huaraz. It's great. If you get a chance to go, you'll have a great time. But one of the issues is that a lot of people really, really, really want to go to Huascarán National Park and see all the sites that are there because it's amazing. But it involves, in a lot of cases, hours of hiking to get to the things that you actually want to see. And so then by having a transportation system and hopefully having a gondola transportation system down the road that would allow access into the park, and then you'd be able to get to those places. For people who haven't been able to get to those places in the past, you'd be able to get to those places, see those sites. It would also allow for hopefully some intelligent development within the park for visitors, so that you're not seeing, people sort of just running all over the place, helter skelter, doing whatever they're going to do in a national park. You don't want to see that. It sort of would serve two purposes. It would sort of like control people in and out, but it'd also add more access to the park. It's expected that it would bring in about 250,000 tourists every year, which is a huge number and potentially very, very successful for the entire area, and would bring a lot more investment into Huaraz for tourists. And like, it's an amazing city. It's got good restaurants. Like, you should go. You should honestly just go stand in the Plaza de Armas in Huaraz and watch the mountains at sunset as they start to turn gold. It's amazing. Okay, so third story. This one's not so positive. In fact, for the rest of the day, for the rest of the news here, it's not so positive. So around South America, there is increasing concern that there is going to be a wave of Bolivian migration. And when people are looking around South America and saying, well, where will these people go? They all say Peru. Now, part of that is that Argentina is currently experiencing hyperinflation and economic issues that they are trying to solve in some way. And Chile has less than optimal economic growth, whereas Peru is projected to grow and become more successful. But at the same time, this can't really come at a worse time for Peru. It can't. So what's happening in Bolivia is that their economy is collapsing, and they have really no foreign currency reserves left. And so they're pretty much broke. Peruvians who are of a certain age would be familiar with this. This is a very, very similar circumstance to what happened under Alan Garcia's first presidential term. As you were put into a situation, given your debt, your national debt, your foreign currency reserves, and inflation, Peru was forced to switch from the inti to the sol, right? They were forced into that currency exchange that took place because inflation was so high that there was no real way around it. And that's what Bolivia is going through right now. And that's why there are concerns about the increased migration. It's bad for Peru because of the timing. So Peru has spent the last decade bringing in 1.5 million Venezuelan migrants. I mean, at least officially, that's what is estimated is 1.5 million Venezuelan migrants, and now is being forced to prepare for the possibility of hundreds of thousands of Peruvians coming back from the United States as a result of deportations. That's putting Peru in a pretty uncomfortable place. And when you then add the possibility of Bolivian migration on top of that, it's going to be very difficult for Peru to accept all those people back into the Peruvian economy and employ them and make sure that they are supported, and still make sure that Peruvians returning from the U.S. are supported, and that you don't have an increase in criminality, that you don't have an increase in other issues that occur as a result of out of control migration. Most economists will tell you that migration is good for the economy because it generally speaking is, but there are instances where you have migration crises, and in the short term to medium term, for in economic terms, so 2 to 5 years, that can be really painful for a country because it takes so long to get the growth necessary to bring all those people into the economy. Okay. Yeah. Well, we're going to have a conversation about this, I'm sure. So I'm sure we will have a conversation about that. I am positive we will. Okay, I'm going to grab a light. I'll be right back. Okay. I always forget to do that when I'm starting the live, not realizing it's getting dark behind me. Okay. So, what are we on to now? The fourth story of the day. The fourth story of the day is the poultry vendor who was murdered in Chorrillos this morning. Okay. I have particular concerns about this one, and I've had these particular concerns for a while. So the woman had been receiving threats from extortionists for 3 weeks. And this morning, she was gunned down by 2 assailants who immediately fled the scene. Okay. Now, she worked at the market in San Gennaro, right? So the market is shut down because of the threats to vendors, etc. But this is of particular concern for me, the way I see it, because Chorrillos is not under a state of emergency. Chorrillos is not. And what this indicates to me is that you might be seeing a situation where, it's sort of like if you squeeze a balloon. I thought it was too, but then I looked it up and it wasn't on the list. And so Callao, parts of Callao, definitely under state of emergency, but I did not see Chorrillos on the list. And because when I was reading the story, I was like, I need to look this up, right? It's sort of like when you squeeze a balloon, okay? So when you squeeze the balloon, the air doesn't just vanish. It squeezes out to one end, right? And in putting the state of emergency in place in some districts, what I'm afraid is happening is they're squeezing the balloon in, say, a district like San Juan de Lurigancho, and that air is escaping out and it's impacting other districts like Chorrillos in this instance this morning, but also other districts. For instance, the increase in taxi-related crime that I can't fully talk about yet in Miraflores, right, where you're seeing criminality shift as a result of the state of emergency, instead of the state of emergency actually dealing with the crime. The crime's just moving around the city now so that it's not impacted by police. And the last story for the day that I just got up, like a minute before I started the live, like less than that probably. Scotiabank has increased their expectations for GDP growth in 2025 for Peru. They've increased it from 2.5% to 2.8%. Okay. Which isn't a huge increase, but it's gone up as a result of Scotiabank evaluating what the Port of Chancay will do for Peru, the business it'll bring in for Peru. And so they've increased it. And I thought, well, this report is fairly positive. Everything seems great. And then you just keep reading the report and you realize that really this report from Scotiabank was them saying, here's a positive thing. Here's some positive information, right? So now you'll read the rest of the report. And the rest of the report goes on to say that Peruvian GDP would be much higher, except that there's an illegal economy and there is criminality and it is affecting both citizens and businesses. And then it goes on further to say that Peruvian GDP growth should be as high as 6%, but it's not because the government is awful. One thing that I really, really, really love in economic reports is somebody who actually reads them. Like most people don't do that, but I actually do. I really, really, really like when economists give attitude in reports. I like it when economists get sassy. And I know that's slang so for some of the Peruvians it might not register, but I like it when Peruvians criticize and do it openly and do it aggressively, because these are the experts in the economy and they're telling you that everything would be great if you weren't here. That's basically what the report said to the government. Everything in Peru would be great if you weren't here. That's a very damning report. And that's when I came live, I had just got the story up. I had just gotten the video up. And like I said, as I started the live, I shouldn't be smiling at the last story I posted, but I am, because that's exactly what the country needs, is to have a bank that will come out in an economic report and say, look, guys, the economy is good, but the economy would be great if the government didn't suck. Right? Now, I see questions that have popped up over so far as people have come in and joined. And I will get to questions. The first one I saw was, what did I think about Huánuco? I think Congress should be called back. I know it's APEC and I know they're out visiting constituents, but when you have something happens like that, where you have that amount of damage that is done, you can't just rely on the regional government to provide everything. There needs to be a national response, and you need to make sure that the leadership exists to provide a national response. And right now, Dina Boluarte is focused on shaking hands, and the Congress is supposedly at home, although I have a feeling a lot of them went to Miami. So who is it politically that's providing that national leadership? Because I've seen the social media posts from the Institute of Health and stuff like that, and the bureaucracy is doing a good job. I'm not criticizing the bureaucracy. I'm not criticizing those first responders. I'm not criticizing firemen or police who are out there on the streets helping in Huánuco. I'm not criticizing them at all, but I will criticize politicians who stand off to the side when they could be doing their job and making sure that any relief needs get to Huánuco and that there are no disruptions in recovery or search and rescue if needed, anything like that, right? So that's my initial take on that. Yeah, I know they should do. But the thing is, we should have the expectation that they do those things, and we should express the expectation that they do those things, right? Because only by expressing that they should be doing those things, only by showing ourselves and expressing how we feel, will you ever get politicians to act. So you need to not just feel it and feel that they should do it, but express it outwardly. You need to say it, right? Okay. Somebody always asks me how I feel about Bukele, and like the thing is, I'm very mixed on Bukele. So I'm very, very, very mixed on Bukele. Very mixed. There are things he says that I absolutely agree with the statement. The statement isn't bad, right? But then I look at the implementation and I go, well, no, that's not how you're supposed to do that. You should be better than that. I think he's a highly intelligent guy. I think he genuinely cares about his country, and you don't see that in a lot of politicians. I think he communicates very well. It's the actual implementation of some of the ideas. Like, I actually agree with him about dealing with crime. That yes, it's going to hurt you economically in the short term, but you just have to deal with it. You just have to do it. Just deal with the crime and get it over with, instead of fighting it for years and years and years, and you keep on paying more and more and more and more to fight it. Just deal with the crime, get it over with, finish it, and move on. I agree with him on that. Even though a lot of economists and economic thinkers wouldn't agree with him on that, I do agree with him on that. Where I disagree was in the implementation of how he did it. Because what happened is that I don't think he had enough good oversight in the positions that needed to be actually actioning what he was saying. Right? In other words, I don't think there were strong enough leaders in the police. I don't think there were good enough leaders in the police. I don't think, same thing for the military. I think it all could have been much better. And as a result, you saw a lot of innocent people that sort of got wrapped up in the whole criminal purge. People who were not actually attached to criminal organizations, were not committing any actual crimes or anything like that, they also ended up in prison, and that's not okay. And we saw something like that in Peru under Fujimori, and Fujimori's reaction to Shining Path, and how, Shining Path had to be dealt with. Nobody even argues that. It's how you deal with it. Right? And if you get too overzealous, if you try to project too much power, then you end up putting innocent people in jail. And that's what happened under Fujimori as well, where you had a lot of innocent people who hadn't actually done anything, who weren't actually attached to terrorism, and they ended up in jail. And that's not okay. That is a human rights violation. When it comes down to it, that's what it is. I know it's not intentional. I'm not saying Bukele meant for that to happen. I don't think he meant for that to happen at all. But it's an offshoot of what you do. And so you need to make sure that the leadership is in place and that the justice system is working smooth enough that if somebody does happen to get sort of pulled up in a in a fight against criminal organizations, that you have the tools and the strength to say, this was a mistake. Okay, that person is fine. All these other guys, they're bad, but that one, like, you need to be able to pull out the ones that you didn't mean to get. And people have spent months and months in jail, right, under Bukele, where they haven't actually done anything. And that's a concern. You have to, like, absolutely, I agree with him on getting rid of crime. Absolutely. You have to do it smart, though. Right? You just have to do it better. And I know that's tough, but that's the bottom line. You can't be violating human rights. Human rights of good people must be a priority of bad people. And here's the lesson I'm going to teach you. A lack of justice anywhere, a lack of justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And there are no good people or bad people. There are only people. And human rights apply to humans, and all of them are human. Good people do bad things, and bad people do good things. If you continue to view people through a binary lens of sinner or innocent, you're always going to be surrounded by bad people because everybody sins. Everybody's a bad person. Good people do bad things. So, no, there is no bad people had his chance. No. Everybody's a bad person. Everybody sins. If that's how you want to look at it, everybody does something that hurts other people. Everybody does that. They don't necessarily mean to. They may not do it intentionally. They may not want to do it, but they do it. Nobody's a good person or a bad person. There's only people. Changed your mind on what? I hope it was something good. What's up, Donnie? What's going on? It's good. Yeah. So, okay. So we've addressed the Waiko and Wanuko in terms of questions. Why news in English for Peru? The gentrifiers report on the news now. That's cute, Joe. It's cute. Why the news in English in Peru? I'll tell you why. Because there's a privileged class in Peru. Okay, there's a privileged class. And then there's everybody else in Peru. There's a privileged class, people who are wealthy, people have money, people can do what they want. And there's a lot of money in Peru, a lot of it. Okay? And the privileged class, the richer people in Peru, they get to travel, they get to see the world, they go out into the world. They tell people about Peru, how Peru is from their perspective. Okay, and people hear about Peru from their perspective. And if you read English language news that currently exists about Peru, besides me, you get a lot of mining news, agricultural news, only the good stuff though. You get some tourism news. You get some archaeological news, things like that. Oh, totally have white savior complex. Totally. I'm totally here to save you. Totally. Instead of actually listening to people and having conversations with them, I'm telling them exactly how they should be. Totally. No, I'm being sarcastic, Joe. I'm being sarcastic. Because, Joe, what you're doing is you're saying these people aren't good enough. And, Joe, I have 2 words for you. I won't say them. Where do you think I live, Joe? Joe, where do I live? Year round, by the way, year round. No. What you're saying is that these people aren't good enough to have their voice heard around the world, that it should only be heard in Spanish, and it should only be heard in Peru, if it's heard at all. And then you can watch the Spanish language news in Peru, and you can say that they ignore the same communities you're saying I should be talking about. Well, why aren't you saying that to La Repubblica? Why don't you say it to RPP? Why don't you say it to Latina Noticias? Like, are they out there talking about are they out there speaking about for the people? And is it going out to an international audience that doesn't speak Spanish? It's not. People don't know. Fuck, go to Miraflores. You think the gringos walking around Miraflores have any idea what's going on in the country? I bet if you talk to a gringo in Miraflores today, they don't even know APEC's happening. Who's the live for? That's a reasonable question, Joe. It's for a few people, or a few groups of people. First of all, so you have this group in Peru. You have this group of expats in Peru, and they don't engage with the news, and so they don't know what's going on. Right? They don't know. They have no clue. The expat community has no clue because they're like, I enjoy the restaurants, I enjoy the community, I enjoy the weather. No, there's a difference between expats and immigrants, and I've talked about it at length, but you have a group of very ignorant people who do not realize there's a difference, and they want to put them all together. So you have a group of expats who are here, who do not engage with the community at all, do not read the news, do not care what's going on. And then you have a group you have the tourism group. See, Joe, you're racist. Joe, it's okay that you're racist. Just come straight out and say you are racist. Because you just told me that unless you're white, you can't be rich. That's what you just told me. Joe, you're a racist. You're so incredibly racist, you might as well go burn a cross on somebody's lawn. That's one of the more racist things anybody said in my life. You just said you can only be an expat if you're white. And that means, like, white. So you're rich. So you can only be rich if you're white. Yeah, I know there's a record of the chat. I'm saying that's what you're implying. You're saying you're only an expat if you're white. The whiteness makes you an expat. And so, what do you say? So you're saying Chinese people can't be expats? You're saying what? Like who Europeans of certain descents can't be an expat? What are you saying? What is the real difference between an expat and an immigrant? Great, ask that question. An expat does not intend on staying long term. An immigrant intends on staying long term and becoming a citizen at some point. An expat has no intent on becoming a citizen, has no intent of staying long term. They are here for a medium term stay. So not short term, which is tourism, not long term, which is immigration, medium term stay. In other words, I will be here for 2 to 5 years. I'm going to stay here and be an expat for 2 to 5 years, and then I'll move on. Right? They don't generally really ever associate with the community that, or the country that they've moved into. They are there for whatever reason. They like the weather, they like the whatever it is, but they're there for a medium term, 2 to 5 years, not to become citizens. Immigrants are there for long term, more than 2 to 5 years, and to become citizens. Can Latinos be expats then? Yes. Everybody in the world can be an expat. What sort of journalism do I specialize in? Well, I was a defense journalist. I was a defense journalist in Canada. But that's not really I know more about that than probably anything. That's not the general use of the word. How you use the word doesn't matter. I use the definition. I don't care what you call people. You can walk around calling people assholes all day. It seems like that's what you do, Joe. It seems like you came into a live where people were talking about Peru and the news in Peru, and you said, hey, let me take this over by being an asshole. And you've achieved that. Congratulations, you achieved being an asshole. You've moved on to the next level. And so now you got me with attitude. And that's fine. Where normally I don't have it, I have no problem with it because I'm speaking in English and you're trying to type in English. I'm not insulting you. I'm saying that's what you did when you came in. You came in with attitude to try to show that you were superior. And if you want to show that you're superior, try. But you may want to know the definition of words before you use them. I'm talking, you're typing. You did bring superiority into the conversation, but that's fine. Yeah, if anybody else has a question, there were stories we covered today, and you can call it news aggregation. I think somebody called that. Sure, you can call it that. Absolutely. There's other stuff I've been working on, but I am one person, and yes, so I do end up aggregating news. But you know what? You know where it isn't? In English. Now I understand there's a bunch of people who get really, really upset that people would talk about Peru in English because that's really insulting to you. It's really insulting to you. And I'll keep that in mind when Canada stops exporting billions and billions and billions of dollars of gold, copper, zinc, and agricultural products. I'll keep that in mind when the US stops exporting your agricultural products, from your fisheries, from your textile industry. I will keep that in mind when they stop doing that. But as long as they keep taking from Peru, I'm going to keep telling people what's actually happening in Peru, that they are supporting corruption. The Canadian mining corporations have a backdoor channel with Dina Boluarte in order to promote corruption. But did you think about that? No. You just thought, oh, here's a white privileged guy. Let me see if I can give him attitude because it'll make me feel more accomplished as a human being. It makes you like one of the biggest assholes I've come across on TikTok in a long time, and I talk with Americans. That's an accomplishment. I talk with gringos. Okay? You have a lot of reporters that come into this country who have the ability to cover it in English, and they don't. They don't talk about this place in English. They don't talk about it in English the way it needs to be talked about. Nobody pays attention to the fact that, like, many Peruvians feel like they live under... I must be boring to my buddies. Wilbar, do you have friends? Do you have friends? Because it doesn't seem like you do. Sure, everybody can be friends. Yeah, Peruvian channels cover up the real situation in the country. They do, but you know, there you have a group of Peruvians who are fine with that. They like it. They like that it's being covered up. They shouldn't like that it's being covered up, but they do like that it's being covered up. I mean, at one point, no, not en español. No español. In English, and in English forever. Not because I don't like Spanish, and not because I'm trying to exclude people. Because the English-speaking world has no goddamn clue that, like, a big portion of the Peruvian society thinks it's living in a freaking authoritarian hellscape. And they have every right to feel that way. They're allowed to feel that way. They, like, the English-speaking world doesn't really know about Dina Boluarte and what a piece of human garbage she is. What's up, Daphne? Yes, I was in your neighborhood the other day. Not really. Not really on Instagram or Facebook. I don't really like either one. I don't know why. I just don't. Your thoughts on presidential elections in 2026? I'm not really sure what's going to come out of that. And honestly, I'm a little concerned about what's going to come out of it. I'm a little bit concerned. You might want to move from the background.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't know because here it looks all black.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
But yeah, except that once it sees a human back there, it takes them out of the green screen. Let's see. Question: you are a socialist or a conservative? Neither. You gave me like 2 random spots on the political spectrum and said, are you either one of these? Well, no.
Trump of Kamala, too late.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if I'm Trump or Kamala, but that's done. Now you get to deal with the repercussions of it, and I'll tell you what the repercussions are as like news sort of breaks about those repercussions. But it's over. It's done with. No, it doesn't matter what choice you made. Joe, if you want to break people down into a binary, and you want to say that like you're only this, you're only good if you're this, well then Joe, you don't like people. And I suspect that it would be better for you if you just moved to another planet.
He's a troll.
Yeah, I know. He's a troll. He's a troll for attention.
Don't give him the attention. It's a him, I hope. Or
I don't know. It's something. We need a liberal in Peru. It would be like alcohol on an open wound. You need somebody who actually has some sort of ideological belief in Peru. Like that would be the first thing you need. right? You need somebody with ideology instead of greed, right? You would need somebody who doesn't just pursue corruption, but actually pursues ideas. And that doesn't exist in Peru. So you can't tolerate intolerance. Yeah, that's true. I can't tolerate intolerance. But you've been intolerant the whole time. So clearly you can. Peru has a lot of socialists? No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. I mean, it has people who identify as socialists. This is a problem I run into in the United States as well, is that people will call themselves something. They'll say, I'm a socialist, or I'm a communist, or I'm a Republican, or I am a conservative, or like whatever it is. They'll assign a label to themselves. And then you'll have a conversation with them and you'll realize they're none of those things. Like they're actually none of those things. And one of the things that even for the socialist terrorists of Peru, they weren't socialist. They were greedy. They later aligned themselves with narco traffickers. I mean, they're not socialist. They're not communist. They're certainly not nowhere close to Maoist, which is what they were calling themselves at the time, right? They're just greedy assholes. Which, if they came out and just said, hey guys, we're greedy assholes, it probably would have been easier for a lot of people to take. But no, they came out and said that they're socialist. And so for years now, you've had to deal with this stigma around socialism and the concepts of actual socialism in Peru, where you say Peru, if you were to look at Peru sociologically, is very much a left-leaning society, right? You're community oriented, you help each other out, you give to each other as you can, you do all those things that are very left-leaning in your community. The moment you go to elect a politician, you're like, how far right can I go? Because if I don't go to the right, then I'm going to end up with Shining Path. And it makes no sense, because then 2 weeks after the election, you're now furious with the person that you elected because they're right wing. Right? And it's like, guys, if you realized that it's okay to be a little bit left. It's okay to help each other out. It's okay to have conversations with each other. It's okay to do all of those things. You don't, it's okay to do that, right? You don't have to, douse yourself in bleach by electing somebody who's from the right wing. Right? So this is the paradox that Peru has found itself in for I don't even know when exactly it started, but I know the generational trauma that I can see still in Peru from the 1980s and the 1990s, and how people still politically sort of align themselves because they are genuinely convinced, a lot of people are, that if you are on the left at all, you are bad. While they ignore that a lot of the things that they are asking for from their politicians are very left-leaning ideas, right? And you have a lot of politicians across the spectrum in Peru that when they are running for election, they will give you all of these left-leaning ideas that you really, really like. And like, so you'll say like, oh, they're going to build a hospital, or they're going to spend money on education, or they're going to do this particular project. And then it's like, nobody ever realizes that, like, well, that investment in education that you wanted, that's a left-wing idea. That investment in healthcare that you wanted, that's a left-wing idea. And, like, it's okay to be on the left. It doesn't mean that you're the devil. For the exact reasons I said, Oscar. I don't, like, I've said for a long time that Peru needs to get over the generational trauma aspect of it, where they realize, you know what, bad stuff happened in Peru. We acknowledge that bad stuff happened in Peru, and we realize what happened and we move on, right? You accept that it happened and that it caused pain, and you choose to move on. And a lot of Peruvians have never made that choice to move on. They want to still feel that pain.
And blame. Because blaming is easier than accept that we as a society, races, we as a society, our classes, we as a society are responsible for what's happening now.
Yes. That, I don't know if you heard that, but that, yes, and this is the other thing, is that Peru does have a tendency to externalize the problem. The problem is the gringos. The problem is the Canadians. The problem is the Europeans. The problem is
Narcos,
the narcos. The problem is the Argentinos. The problem is the Bolivians. The problem is all these different people, instead of accepting the fact that, like, guys, Peruvians are the problem. Dina Boluarte is Peruvian. She's the president, guys. That means it's pretty verified she's Peruvian, right? Congress? I can't serve in Congress. Right? I can't serve in Congress. I can't make the decisions that Congress makes. The problem is Peruvians, guys. The externalizing doesn't help. It doesn't help you deal with the problem. Right? Yeah, those, like, the international conglomerates that come in the mining sector and stuff like that, yeah, they do bad shit. But you know what? They're also paying off Peruvian politicians so that they can do the bad shit. They're paying. I've had people actually argue with me about this, and I don't understand why. There are reports from Canadian government agencies. Okay, there are reports from international organizations within the mining industry, okay, that have talked about how Canadian mining corporations pay police in Peru to harass and injure Peruvian citizens for their benefit. Okay? There are reports on how Canadian mining corporations expropriate land from Peruvian citizens. Okay? There's, like, the international business and stuff like that, they do a lot of bad things. And they don't deserve to get off the hook at all. But the thing is, you also have to be aware of the Peruvian who said, yes, I'll take money so that I can hurt my fellow Peruvian? Because, like, in a way, I can sort of understand the international business, the international corporation saying, we have a problem and we know we can pay somebody to take care of the problem and it goes away. I can sort of understand that. I'll never understand a Peruvian who takes money from a Canadian to go hurt other Peruvians. I'll never understand that. Why does that happen? And why aren't you furious at that Peruvian? Right? Like, guys, you have to just, at some point, and I'm using guys colloquially, I'm not saying just men, but like, you have to realize that the problem is the Peruvian there. That the Peruvian took the money to go hurt other Peruvians. Right? You can deal with like, if a Canadian corporation comes and asks you to do that, why aren't you like investigating the Canadian corporation? Why aren't you investigating the Canadian corporation instead of going to like beat on your fellow Peruvian? Or let's just say, because these are all allegations and I can't prove any of it. So let's just say, we're just going to discuss hypothetically. Hypothetically, let's say the Canadian mining corporations announced that they did not want Pedro Castillo to remain as president. Let's say that happened. Okay? And then let's say that shortly thereafter, Pedro Castillo is removed from office after attempting a self-coup because Congress is trying to investigate him. Okay? So let's say that happens. Okay? So he's removed from office. Okay? And then let's say Dina Boluarte ascends to the presidency. Okay? And then let's say that within 2 weeks, she has a press conference with Canadian mining corporation CEOs expressing her support for the Canadian mining corporations. Let's say that happened. Then let's say there are protests in Peru related to the actions of mining corporations. And then let's say that Canadian corporations bribe police to commit violent acts against protesters. And then let's say that Dina Boluarte, who just had that press conference with the Canadian mining CEOs, sent security forces to deal with the protesters. And then let's say that 49 to 80 Peruvians were massacred. And you tell me who the problem in all of that is. Is it the Canadian Mining Corporation? Yeah. Is it the Canadian Mining Corporations? Yes, it is. But it's also Dina Boluarte and every single police officer, every single member of the security forces who said, I'll go do that. Well, we're past discussing the news really at this point, Sebastian. So we're just on to stuff. For you, Peru is socialist or capitalist? It's both.
But I'm tired of those, like, you have to label yourself. If not, your words are not listened.
It's a highly capitalist, mercantilist economic system sitting on top of a highly socialist, community-oriented system, like social structure. So it's both of them. do I think Peru has access to the free visas? This is hilarious. You guys are about to.
I didn't know that the US gave free visas to the country, right?
Yeah.
It's worded like a Peru.
Yeah, I know.
So Peru received visas because Peru travel.
Yeah. Yes, the whole country moves around. But do they have access? I think they're not about to. They're about to have access to nothing. Yeah, that's my wife. She's over there. I have to like sort of squeeze in to get my finger out under the screen, but yeah. Do I think they're, no, I don't think they're, well, I mean, maybe for the time being they do, but I mean, that disappears January 21st. Have fun with that. Peru's going to go through a tough time starting January 21st.
So you don't think that it's going to be progressional decision? It's going to be...
No, the migration issues are going to be shut down pretty, like, that's going to be like instant. He's going to get into office and sign the executive orders, and a lot of it's going to get shut down. So, I've been warning on here as issues of migration come up, like the prospect of Bolivian migration and how that's going to impact Peru. And then you have to look at like this situation as totality in terms of like what is Peru about to go through. We're going to ask you for a visa, like the credit card? No, no. The only one that has access to. I'm Canadian and from the United States as well. So, and I'm already a Peruvian resident. So that visa thing is like gets out the door. The only one that has access to a visa is Chile, which is light years away from Peru. That's not really true. Chile is not actually light years away from Peru. It really isn't. And I'm not saying that like Chile isn't in a better developed state than Peru is for the most part. I mean, you can't say anything like blanket across the board. But for the most part, yes, Chile is, on average, they've reached a higher level of development. But that's not why. The reason why is because Chile is a major customer for the U.S. Military industrial complex. They consistently, well, I don't know if it's an agreement that's in place or if it's just random, but they always seem to buy U.S. military equipment for their military. So they sort of get preferential treatment in that relationship with the U.S. just because of that. There's other reasons too. They are related to whiteness. Chileans on average are whiter than Peruvians. And so people in the U.S. don't mind them as much, because the U.S. is an inherently racist and sexist and misogynist country. So Kissinger did put Pinochet in power. Yup, that happened. That is a thing that happened. Yeah. But I do appreciate being asked if Peru's going to have access to the free visas, because we'll visit Peru for the Asia Pacific International. Yes, he will. He arrives the 14th, I believe, as does Justin Trudeau and Xi Jinping. I'm not sure if he's arriving tomorrow or the 14th, but the inauguration of the Port of Shanghai is the 14th, so he's probably arriving tomorrow. They're also going to sign a new trade agreement while China is in town, while Xi Jinping is in town. They're going to sign an updated trade agreement between China and Peru. I think that's just because like the port is opening. They need to do some paperwork there that's going to make trade easier and all of those things, make operation of the port easier, all those things. So updated trade agreement, all the people here for APEC. Also South Korea's leader will be here. The Sultan of Brunei is already in town. That was today. Peru made a ceremony out of the Sultan of Brunei getting here. And I took that as a direct shot at Keiko Fujimori. I took that as a direct shot at Keiko Fujimori. That was Dina Boluarte telling Keiko to F off. No, I'm not. One, because it's just not feasible for us to get there. Some people have to work and stuff, and so that's not going to happen, unfortunately. It's not that we don't want to. It's not that we don't want to support. It's that the feasibility of it is a bit of an issue. Yeah, but Alan Garcia has been dead for a while, so I don't know how accurate that number would still be. He can have said that whenever he wanted to, and it may have been accurate. Yeah, so no, the Sultan of Brunei thing. Hear me out on this. So Keiko has been on her X account on Twitter, and she has been expressing how wonderful her father was for getting Peru into APEC, and how Keiko's father was just so great. Alberto Fujimori fled Peru by telling everybody he was going to the Apex summit in Brunei. And then he fled to Japan, where he resigned by fax. I think most people are familiar with that part. Okay? But the Apex summit he was supposed to be attending was in Brunei. And Keiko has been up on Twitter talking about how great her father is for getting Peru into APEC. Peru's now a member of APEC thanks to the wonderful Alberto Fujimori, who, of course, then fled the country. Right? And so I really did take it as a shot at Keiko when Dina decided to make the whole arrival of the Sultan of Brunei such a big event, right? Because I think what she was saying is, hey, remember, this is the country your dad fled from as a result of, right? Your dad used this country as an excuse to leave Peru, to flee Peru because of his crime. So I took the let's make a big deal out of the Sultan of Brunei arriving as like that's exactly, it was a shot at Keiko and Alberto. To apply for a Congress seat in Japan, Senate seat in Japan, and was rejected. Yes. Dina is working for Keiko. There's some sort of relationship there. I don't know what really is going on, but
Because they are.
Well, they are a corrupt family in Peru. Presidents are always corrupt. That's the reality. Martin Vizcarra strongly disagrees with you. Yeah, he does. He does. I know you're all laughing there, going like, Vizcarra disagrees that because Vizcarra recently got a TikTok account recently, and I don't know if you've been paying attention, but he's on TikTok trying to explain how, he's innocent in his court cases that are currently ongoing. Yeah, 7:30. And so he's out here expressing that, like, well, I didn't take 1 million soles or whatever it was. I didn't take that money. I didn't do that. And I will tell you something. Vizcarra is of now. Granted, I have not been living in Peru for forever, obviously. Vizcarra is one of the better political speakers you have. I realize he's full of shit. I realize he's not telling the whole truth. I realize he's being very selective in what he's telling you. I realize in some cases he's just lying to you. Right? But I'll tell you this, he talks really well. The only one I respect is Fujimori, who ended inflation. And then you go on to mention Milei. So you're a fan of Milei in Argentina. Here's where that doesn't agree with. Here's how I can explain how your logic doesn't agree with itself. But I don't know that it's worth my time to do that. Like, my mom doesn't tell me anything, Julian. I hate Vizcarra, but I love how he went against the corrupt Congress. Okay. No, it's not worth arguing about it. Sagasti is the best. See, and this is the thing you're going to have, because it made the Peruvian Credit Bank autonomous. But you said he dealt with inflation. And you're a fan of Javier Milei. Well, right now I am, yeah. And this way I can interact with a whole bunch, like with more than just one of you. No reason in particular. Sometimes I'll have people up, sometimes I won't. But today by the time it's even a thing, I'm at 1912. Fujimori just stole Vargas Llosa. Yeah. There's that aspect to it. But also, like, if you're a fan of Javier Milei is an Austrian school economist. Okay, see you later, Peru Digital. Thanks to your economy is our currency stable. Thanks to Fujimori's government, economy and our currency is stable. You really have to thank Julio Velarde, and Velarde comes after Fujimori, if I'm not mistaken. It's like you all forgot that Julio Velarde exists. He didn't face what the hyperinflation, okay. The terrorism, okay. Economic isolation, not so much. He worked with the IMF. That's not economic isolation. Trump has praised Maduro. Guys, work harder, man. Trump has praised Maduro. This isn't hard. Okay. Yeah, Fujimori didn't fight terrorism. Well, I mean, uh, yeah, I get what you're saying there. Um, I get where you're going, but um, uh, yeah, and like honestly, it doesn't matter where you land on that. There's only really like as soon as you say two words, the entire argument is over, and every Fujimorist, for everybody who's a Fujimorismo needs to like just go off into the darkness. Grupo Colina. No, go back into your cave. PETA in Peru just moved to San Isidro. Oh, you're a crypto. Other than that, the resume looks really good. But you're still a crypto. You're a crypto gal, because I can't call you a crypto bro, I don't think. But that would no, I'm good. I managed to retire anyway. Um, but um, that's funny. You're just jealous because you didn't buy it low. No, I bought other things low and retired anyway. Now I'm not holding a bunch of crypto that's going to be highly susceptible to global inflationary pressures as a result of a Trump administration and their tariff policies. Trump is always selling NFTs. Thanks for remembering he was the impulsor to join to Peru in one of the countries belonging to APEC. And then he used an APEC summit to leave Peru. He used an APEC summit as an excuse to flee to Japan and resign by fax. Alberto, do your homework. Yeah, it didn't go well. So hot for Fujimori. And for all the Fujimoristas, all of you, when it all comes down to it, Grupo Colina, and you have nothing you can say against it. You have nothing that you can say that says that anything Grupo Colina did was okay. And that was all ordered by Fujimori and Montesinos. So Fujimori didn't end the terror of Shining Path. You know that like most of the conflict with Shining Path actually occurred under Alan Garcia. Did you know that? If I was Peruvian in 2021, who would you vote for? Not a goddamn Fujimori. Never a Fujimori. It was your major in college? Like, Fujimorism is a is a what you study in college. Fujimorism. That would be like one of the worst majors in college. Try to disassemble. Trump stands for freedom and democracy as well as Fujimori. But you can't, like, if you say, look, if you say, I want you to consider the statement that you're making there, Stephanie. Trump stands for freedom and democracy as well as Fujimori did it. Fujimori did the self-coup in 1992. That's undemocratic. He became an authoritarian leader that some referred to as a dictator around the world. That's anti-democratic. If you're saying Trump is that equivalent, then what you're saying is Trump is anti-democratic. Fujimori rigged his final election and then had to flee the country. Yes, I did read the Truth and Reconciliation report. And I've gone back through it a couple times in parts, yes. Focus on the terror. Oh, geopolitical history of Latin America with a focus on the terrorism of the 70s through 90s. Oh, that seems like it was like the best time to like that seems like you must have been a real party girl in college if that was what you studied. Fujimorista's only defense are rojo and caviar, pretty much. Everybody's rich and everybody's red. Some gringos taught me swear words. Good. Gringos should teach you swear words. How do you feel about American imperialism, interventionism in Peru? How do I feel about it? Well, I feel that in its current state, I think people in Peru kind of blow it out of proportion, but only in its current state. I think the interventions of the United States throughout South America and Central America in its totality were like incredibly damaging to the region, but also to ongoing relations between the U.S. and South America. And so what I think is, even though the U.S. doesn't really do a lot of intervention these days, they get blamed for a lot because of their past bad behavior. So like, have there been things in sort of recent memory? Yes, like after Fujimori fled Peru, George W. Bush did order the bombing of the coca fields in Ayacucho. He did order that, and it did happen. But I mean, overall, U.S. intervention in South America in general, but Peru specifically, has actually declined a lot. No, it's not apologetic at all. Like, I think the U.S. did so much damage for probably a 60-year period, a 70-year period, that at this point, like, even when they're not doing anything, it feels like they're doing things. Yeah, they won't say anything about Grupo Colina. They just forget it happened. They forget all of it, and then they go, "Oh, Fujimori was the best." The thing is, and like they should realize this, and I realize this. They're less than 10% of the population of Peru. So, what? But man, as a third world country, you're not a third world country. You're a developing nation. But man, we as a third world country, we need a dictatorial, you need a dictator to go ahead as Korea or Singapore did. Which Korea? Because I don't think you want to be North Korea. And South Korea is a thriving parliamentary democracy. Yeah, that's not when all of the growth happened. The growth happened when they overthrew the dictator. Because I live in Peru. And that answers two questions. Because PETA asked that. Who are you, and are you here in Peru? Yes. I am Blake. And I live in Peru. I live here. It's true. Do what do I say about Chile and Pinochet? Fuck the US for everything they did to Chile as well. Fuck the UK as well. Like, while you're at it, take both of those countries and tell them to go fuck themselves. No, I do not live in Miraflores. Guys, go back and watch my videos. I told you exactly where I live yesterday. Go find the clue. It's also China. It's a little bit bigger than Peru. I don't know if you've realized that, but they're not even close to the same size. They don't have the same geographic realities. They don't have anywhere near the same population either. So, and I don't think you understand how Chinese GDP was inflated and the problems that they're having with that right now, leading to an economic contraction, that it was resulting in them taking fiscal steps of 1.5 trillion US dollars of stimulus into their economy just this month. 1.5 trillion US dollars.
Could I translate those? Those are Peruvians thinking that through dictatorship is the only way for Peru to grow economically and socially, because China, Korea, some food. So
Yeah.
they make a...
Yeah, I know. It's the same thing you used to tell me, that dictatorships are efficient.
No, I'm still stand on my words. Dictatorships are efficient because they are not democratic decisions.
Yeah.
You're efficient taking decisions. Democracy fail because it takes time to take decisions.
And people get impatient.
Yeah.
Do you work for the U.S. government? No. I feel like I'm answering these questions sort of ahead of time, and then like,
But they are not followers.
but they're not like really following. No, even in this conversation, but then like people aren't really following the conversation very well, and so then they like ask it, but in a different way. It's like, do you work for the U.S. government?
No, because you have to give them credit. They are trying to type in
Yeah,
English.
yeah, I know.
And they want to ask a question. That's an easier.
Do you hear her accent? She's not a gringa.
Why I will be a gringo?
What brought you to Peru? So did you hear her accent? She's not a gringa.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
At this point, Fujimoristas are just copying, pasting the same stuff. Yes, pretty much. Choose a way to be developed. A slavery country as Canada or U.S. or an efficient
I
dictatorship.
think someone grabbed the topic. So when you are into providing your thoughts about Grupo Colina, the questions go faster. Like, who are you? Are you Miraflores? Are you?
Yeah, I don't know.
So what they don't want to is that you talk that sensitive topic.
Jesus, he got answered in a video today because he commented and I answered it. She has a big Academy accent. I agree.
What?
Yeah, Academy Britannico.
Oh, that I have a...
Yeah.
I have a... No, I don't have a Britannic accent. You mean my Institute of Language?
Your Institute of Language. Where can I find news about Peru in English? Right here?
I don't know.
Pensante.
Is it academy or academic?
Yeah, I don't.
Or I'm just...
I don't know. I'm trying to get out of here. I need to end. I'm at my hour and a half. That's what I promise to you every evening is an hour and a half. If you're on YouTube right now, you can even see the schedule. 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. It is now 7:30 p.m. I'm getting out of here, guys. Like a good half Canadian, I'm gonna go watch hockey.
Where are you, by the way?
You're gonna have to go and watch videos on my page.
Yeah.
I told you yesterday exactly where I am, where if you're really smart, you can pinpoint almost the exact place that I live. If you're really, really, really smart, you can. But I told you yesterday exactly, like almost exactly where I live. Okay, I'm getting out of here. You can, if you want to review the live and watch me argue with people, including Fujimoristas, that's great. You can go to the YouTube channel at Pensante Peru, and you can subscribe, and you can watch you can watch old lives. You can watch this live again if you really want to. If you want to relive this moment in your life, and to realize just how important it is to you that I am here. My accent is not from DMV at all. I've never, no, not even close. So if you want to do that, you can go over to @Pensante Peru on YouTube, watch all the lives. And yeah, I know you watch both at the same time, Donnie, but one is in front of the other. And so like, yeah, it's great. I don't know how you do it. But like, subscribe, comment on videos over here, of course, on TikTok, and comment and like over on YouTube too. You're allowed to do that. And again, the schedule is as follows. News twice a day. We do an hour between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. And then we do an hour and a half from 6 p.m. to 7:30 Monday through Friday. And then sometimes I pop in on weekends with videos and stuff like that too, if there's news that requires something. But news in English. Yeah, my wife, she's right there. She does not have a gringa accent.
You never answered what brought you to Peru.
She kidnapped me. Human trafficking.
No, I didn't.
Grupo Colina brought him here. Yes, Grupo Colina
I'm
brought.
a good Peruvian. I want to leave Peru.
Yes, she is a member of Grupo Colina, and she kidnapped me and brought me
No,
here.
it's not funny.
I'm just putting I'm putting all of the things together to denounce her. Yeah, she's an extortionist. She is extorting
It's
me.
not funny.
Okay, I'm out of here. I will see you all tomorrow at noon if you're available, or tomorrow night here as well. Bye bye, everybody. I'm going to watch hockey now. Go live now while your videos are trending. I was just live for an hour and a half. Thanks, TikTok. Stay live longer. Stay live.
Oh,
for
they
the rest
want
of
you
your
more.
life.
They just say more?
Yeah, go live while your videos are trending. Like, no,
Oh.
I don't want to. But that's probably what happened. Is I had.
How
Well, it didn't like blow up or anything. Just it got more views than it was getting.
How many per night approximately?
How many per night? What?
So, for example, how many followers you get from here? Tonight.
I got 69 tonight. Usually I average usually somewhere between 50 and 80 total a day, new. Usually, pretty much regardless of what I do.
Well,
69 is a pretty good haul for one live, right? If I'm around 50 for the evening live, then it's been a good live.
so why an hour and a half? Isn't that a lot for you?
No, I do an hour at lunch. I give them a little bit more talk time in the
Yeah,
evening
that's-
because there's more of them that are home. Right? Some people don't get a
No,
chance
I mean it's long because there's a lot of questions that you answer,
No,
and there is
doesn't bother me.
it's in bother.
What bothers me is ignorant people. Like expats or fucking immigrants. No, expats and immigrants are not the same thing.
I shared the blog news to Sandra to see if she had more info about what's happening. So she's impressed with the note that you put about Miraflores,
The warning?
kind of a warning. It's not normal that people make these type of denunciations and people listen to them. Normally, because it's so frequent, nobody cares.
Well, I have other things I don't like about it. I don't like that the police did nothing except they go like, oh yeah, but you were at a bar.
Well, they took the
Statements.
statement, but they judge.
Yeah, and then they go, yeah, well, we're not doing anything because you were at a bar. Essentially, that was what they did.
But that's a misogynist culture.
Yes, it is.
You're a woman, so
You're a
you
woman,
shouldn't.
you're at a bar,
you
so...
shouldn't. So how you expose yourself?
Yeah, but if you don't
So
want to be a victim of
blaming
crime...
the victim, yeah.
If you don't want to be a victim of crime, don't be around men. Like, it's not a very good fucking train of thought there. Oh, I'm still live here. I'm still live, guys. I forgot to stop the streaming on the YouTube.